What's up, guys? The Lazy Goldmaker here, and we're going to continue our looks into the War Within. Now, as I said on the last video, I still don't have beta access, so we're going to be looking at the Wowhead, which does have some nice amount of data we can focus on. So today we're going to look at the blacksmithing, one of my favorite professions historically. But we'll see how it's looking in the War Within. Now, if you look at the recipe list, it looks pretty similar overall to Dragonflight. So we have the BOP Epic gear, which can be upgraded with the item level stones, and you use the missives to pick the stats, and you can presumably have some form of embellishment as well for extra effects. So this is going to cover all of the plate armor slots, and you're going to have weapons for pretty much every spec as far as I can tell here. So that's obviously going to be popular. I mean, people will always want to pay some amount at least for maximum level gear. And as anyone who went heavily into professions in Dragonflight will know, like, doing work orders could be quite profitable. It was just annoying to sit in and trade and actually find the orders. So that's sort of the bulk here of the relevant professions. There's a lot of like lower level crafted gear, which doesn't really matter that much unless they've finally changed so you can apply item level upgrades and then sell these. But I don't have beta, so I haven't been able to test if they've changed it back to similar to how Crafter's Marks were in Shadowlands. We can hope, we can dream. I don't really expect it to change back. So the other type of items you can craft to sell here are the profession tools. So obviously you have the BOE ones, and then you have the BOP ones that you have to sell with a crafting order. And obviously selling these with a crafting order is probably going to be profitable. I mean, everyone's going to need to get their high quality tools. It's absolutely massive. Just plus 18 skill is incredible, and it's going to have an absolutely massive bonus essentially. So you definitely need that. Skill is perhaps more important in the War Within than it was in Dragonflight, since more skill is now going to impact sort of your rank 3 rate or your concentration, whereas in the War Within, when you were doing, or in Dragonflight when you were just doing inspiration procs anyway, as long as you had enough skill to get your inspiration procs up to max quality, skill didn't matter. Unless for the few professions where you can get very, very close to max, it didn't matter. Then you can also craft these intermediate materials, so the alloys. This is a mass market, volume market. You're selling these on the region-wide auction house. That being said, they can be quite profitable. People will once again have to include all of the materials for public orders. And with how inspiration has been changed, public orders are now a lot better to place because you can guarantee max quality on a public order, whereas you never could that with inspiration. So we could see more public orders. At least we can see some nice demand for the alloy, but you are selling into the region-wide auction house, so probably you need to have an alloy spec to make it worth it to ever use your inspiration on that. But that's something we'll just have to see. There's also the return of these whetstones and weight stones. So blacksmiths now get to craft weapon consumables. We had those from inscription only in Dragonflight. They were quite profitable. Definitely a giga volume item, something that sells really, really quickly. Like, I could do sessions where I would just craft buzzing runes and howling runes and then just post everything I crafted directly to the auction house, sell it all off while I was still crafting, just sitting crate all and standing AFK crafting for an hour during peak, and it was nice profits generally. Don't think it was worth it if you also wanted to play on that account, but when you have 2 accounts, then it's very, very good. So that's it for sort of the recipes we have. I think that the biggest profit by far is going to be in the gear. I do think, I haven't researched heavily like how item levels work in the War Within. I think that crafted gear is going to be slightly lower than max this time around. But it is still going to be a really strong boost early on, and weapons are like the most important slot for pretty much every spec in the game. The weapon is going to be the largest bonus you can get. So that can have some strong demand, and obviously we're back to embellishments as well, so people are going to want like whatever their strongest embellishment effect is. And if that turns out to be one of these like pre-embellished items, then they're going to have huge demand. Like we saw with the I don't even remember, the lariat in the first patch of Dragonflight. So we'll see. There are some good effects here, and obviously embellishments. If there's one you can place on any slot, and every slot is going to be good. Now, if we're looking at the profession tree, the knowledge tree, we have one armor smithing page. This one looks very similar to Dragonflight. There are some small differences about where you get specific bonuses, but in general, this is very, very similar. I'm not sure if this finishing reagents matter, so if it's important to max out the middle nodes, but the final nodes in general are extremely good because they give massive plus skill bonuses on the breakpoints. So if you want to maximize your skill for belts, which is then going to minimize your concentration cost, so that means you can do more orders, I think maxing out the final nodes is a lot more viable. Definitely going broad also has its advantages, but it depends a little bit on like how focused people are going to be. Is it going to be get the lowest stat slot, because then you lose the least amount of stats relative to your potential biz? Then it's going to be bracers. That's going to be like the slot, maybe some of the weapons. I think going deep has potential. Weaponsmithing is also very similar, although they have cut down on the number of different nodes. I think this is slightly more condensed than the Dragonflight version, but you are looking at the same thing. It's like a 30 base node and then 25 and then 25. Unlike with the armor, you get a ton of skill on the final node here. Just a ton of skill. So this is definitely a little bit easier to max out. Then we do have a generic node here, the Ever-Burning Forge. This also gives you Ever-Burning Ignition, which is sort of the buff item. It'll give you a 30-minute buff to your crafting stats when you use an Ever-Burning Ignition. And then you can get multiple charges, and you can get them to reset faster, so this is obviously going to be quite important. Ingenuity particularly is going to be very strong for gold making. That's going to give you back your concentration. That means you get more max quality crafts, which is what you're going to make money with. Then you have multi-craft resourcefulness. Obviously all of this is going to be really, really important to if you're going into anything that sells on the region-wide auction house. If you're doing crafting orders, then it doesn't matter as much. But ingenuity is going to matter because it's going to limit how many orders you can do. And then obviously resourcefulness will help you out recoup some materials, but that's more of a late game thing. I think it's going to be way more important to maximize your skill to get more concentration procs and just be able to do more orders. Then lastly, we have this means of production, which covers all of the utility crafts. So that means the whetstones, the profession equipment, and the alloys, and of course finishing reagents, stuff like that. So if you're going to go into those markets, then you need to max out here. And if you're into those markets, then obviously the multi-craft and resourcefulness nodes are extremely important. This is anything that goes on the region-wide auction house is extremely competitive for on a price basis. And you need to eke out every last 0.1% to be competitive. Obviously early on, it's going to be limited, but there are going to be people going for this as well. As I've covered before, like alts, professional alts, with how concentration works, having multiple alts is huge. And obviously if you can be bothered farming knowledge on multiple alts, then you can have one that focuses on armor on the number 1 armor slot, one that focuses on weapons, and one that focuses on the alloys needed, or focuses on the consumables or whatever. But you will not be profitable unless you have points into the relevant specialization. I just don't think you will. So that's going to be very, very important. And I mean, if you're going to even do profession tools, you need to get here so you can get so you can use the set the stats. Obviously, otherwise people aren't going to get it because they need to have inspiration or ingenuity or ability to craft, depending on what they're using it for, essentially. So I'm not sure what recipe is going to be the best yet. We don't know, but we can look at sims and gearing guides when we get closer to launch to figure out with which gear recipes to go for. And then if you know that you are someone who's had success doing stuff on the region-wide auction house and going for like an alloy crafter or weapon stones can be good. If you're going to do professions, just gear out your other professions. Then you want to rush for trade tools, which is going to be a very important node. But yeah, there are a lot of build possibilities here. So yeah, that's it. That's sort of the overview for blacksmithing. I think it looks good. And sort of, if you made gold with blacksmithing in Dragonflight, then broadly speaking, the same approach is going to work in the War Within.